Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this discussion centered on a group of people that are often forgotten. The attention given to missing Black and Brown women and children is often too far and too few between. We need to make sure that we acknowledge that this discussion tonight is the result of Congressman Bobby Rush and his concern and commitment to this topic and to this issue that continues to affect many communities. I am your moderator this evening. My name is Evelyn Holmes, I'm a reporter with Channel 7 here in Chicago. So as I mentioned, Congressman Rush is really committed to shedding light on this important issue. Tonight we're gathered together with some people who are on the front lines of this issue to discuss their work and explore a path forward. Toward the end of this event, we're going to be opening up the floor to you, the audience, to you, those community members who are joining us this evening. So you can be a part of the conversation by submitting your comments to the panelists using the comment box. Now, feel free to drop in questions throughout the night, leave comments, and like and share the video. To remain up to date on the latest information out of the 1st Congressional District, be sure to subscribe to the Congressman's newsletter using the link that is both on the screen and in the comments. Obviously, we have a lot to cover tonight, so let us get started. It is my great pleasure and truly honored to introduce Congressman Bobby Rush. Congressman.
Good evening. And Eleanor, good evening, Evelyn. Good evening to you, my dear friend Evelyn. And thank you so much for all that you do in representing us on broadcast news in this city and in this state across the nation. Where would we be without the clear insight and forceful voice of our renowned sister, our beloved Evelyn Holmes? Thank you again, Evelyn, for joining us this evening. Thank you, panelists, for this evening of critical discussion on the pandemic, the other pandemic that's before us, the pandemic of missing and murdered Black women and girls in our city of Chicago, our very own hometown. This issue is much more than just a woman's issue. It's an issue of public safety, your safety and my safety, safety of my daughters and granddaughters, my wife, my family, my neighbors. This is an issue of families and not just an issue about women. It is indeed a public safety issue that all of us are affected by. And it is a priority in all of our daily agenda. It is an issue of policing, my. In which cases the Chicago Police Department choose to prosecute or to ignore. It's an issue of race, as there are this disproportionate number of Black women and girls that go missing and are the victims of these and other brutal crimes. While Black Americans make up less than 1/3 of the population in our city, they make up nearly 3/4 of the city's murder victims. Homicides, though, of Black citizens are solved by the CPD at only half the rate of those who are white citizens. Nationally, cases involving missing Black women remain open and unresolved 4 times longer. That's 4 times longer than cases that are involving white and Hispanic Americans. And it don't stop there. Black and brown children go missing more often, remain missing longer, far longer than white children. And it doesn't stop there. To make matters worse, they receive painfully far less media coverage. 75 women, a majority of them Black women, were strangled, smothered in Chicago between the years 2001 and 2017. Yet most of their cases remain unsolved. And it is within the wake of these facts of this strange and obvious phenomena that I convene a community alert session, meeting, confab, conversation, to hear from the victims' families, members of their families, and to hear from local law enforcement, and also to hear from the FBI. I asked the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, to involve themselves in this crime of top priority for our community, to intervene and to help the city and the state process the evidence that's been backlogged in files and on shelves and in boxes and storage containers, evidence that have sat unnoticed, untouched, unrecognized, and uninvolved in the solving of these crimes. I led an Appropriations Committee amendment which received unanimous support in the Congress to increase funding for Department of Justice grant program to help clear rape kit backlogs of those that's been languishing in the files in our city. It remains clear to me that there are a lot more that can be done. A single woman or child, no matter what their race, creed, color, no matter what their zip code, is indeed an American tragedy. And America has to step up to the plate. But when the majority of these cases and the majority of unsolved cases involve Black women, some serious soul searching need to take place. It's in the order of the highest significance and the highest priority. We must do more. And I'm saying this as a Black man, father, husband, uncle, cousin, neighbor, I'm saying this as a black man, we must do more to protect our women, our black women and girls from these hideous and all too common criminals that are perpetrating havoc in our community. I'm just going to sit back and listen, get more insight, more information. I want to know more. I want to know what you know. I want to help, and I need your help. We all need your help. This is a community effort. It's only going to get solved when you and I demand, not just with our mouth, but with our actions, our activities, our resolve. Only when we demand that this problem is solved once and for all. Leave our black women alone. Let's protect our black women. Thank you all for joining us. And I thank again our moderator, our distinguished panel guest, and you, our august audience, for joining us. And I look forward to this panel discussion. God bless.
Thank you, Congressman. Well, Congressman, I think, did a wonderful job of setting up kind of what is going to happen tonight, what we hope to happen tonight. We've got this wonderful, esteemed panel, these folks that are front line folks that understand the dynamics, all the different dynamics that exist in this particular issue. And hopefully what will happen is we will all learn something. We can all add something to this conversation and move this forward to protect those people, obviously, who are most vulnerable. I'm going to introduce each one of our panelists, and then I'm going to follow up with an introduction, and then we'll have some short opening remarks from them before we kind of get into the kind of the meat of the conversation. So let's start with our first panelist, Rosie Dawson. It's been said that she's not only committed to social justice, financial literacy, and community development, and also restoring the Black family, but it is her personal belief that every child deserves to grow up in a home. Rosie has provided education, support, and resources to residents to increase generational wealth and economic enrichment. Throughout her tenure with Westside Health Authority, Rosie has created opportunities for home ownership, entrepreneurship, educational development, and cultural advancement to residents throughout the West Side and South Sides of the city of Chicago. Now, currently, Rosie is launching a new program, Stop Taking Our Girls. Now, the goal of this program will empower the community to fight back against sex trafficking and kidnapping, as well as educate disenfranchised youth to become more self-aware, safe, and productive. Rosie, would you like to share a few words with us?
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank Congressman Bobby Rush for this platform, for the campaign of Stop Taking Our Girls and Women. I'm just so excited to have a chance to speak on this because it's not spoken of often enough. I get very emotional when talking about it because we are taken for granted as Black women, and things that happen to us, in my opinion, they get swept up under the rug. So again, I want to say thank you for speaking on this, and this platform is amazing. First, I want to say that we need to learn to advocate for ourselves. We need to understand that if we don't use our voice, no one will. We need to confront the police when things happen, and get the community involved. The community is the strongest source that we have when someone comes up missing. We had a case back here, well, I want to say November. Ryan Davis came up missing. We found this young lady within 24 hours, but it happens that way because we were on the streets. When her mom called us, she said, I'm not getting any help from the police. I'm desperate. My baby is missing. We got a task force together of 15 to 20 people, and we were out here. We probably put out 1,000 or so flyers. Just by the grace of God, Ryan was found through a flyer. A man saw her hurt and took her to Cook County Hospital. It can be done. We just have to get out here. We have to speak up. We have to help each other. We have to come back to the saying that it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to cover a child. And women, we can't get lost in this world where we don't think we have help. We have help. We just have to ask for it. If you're in a place where you're lost and you don't have anywhere to go, it's places that women can reach out to other than the streets, because when you go to the streets, you come up missing and no one cares. It is so hard for me to even think about young girls not coming home, but it happens every day somewhere. We're just trying to stop it in the city of Chicago, and hopefully it'll spread through the community effort. I feel as though the Stop Taking Our Girl campaign is a very strong campaign. We're new at this. We're not trying to say we have the answers. We don't. We're listening. We want people to come and tell us. We want people to help us. We want people to join this campaign, because that's what it is. It's a campaign. It's not going anywhere. We want to be able to get out here and let people know in the neighborhood that you can't come on this block and pull up in a white van and take a kid off this block. We want people to know you can't go to the malls and ask somebody to smell something and then you forcing them in a van. It's so many different ways that things are happening to these children that people are not discussing with people that can help them. It's a secret. It's like a closed secret. Sex trafficking is real. It is happening. And it could be someone in your neighborhood. It could be your neighbor. Well, if you see something, say something. Report it. You don't know whose life you're saving.
Thank you so much, Rosie. And you're exactly right. I did a story about a year ago about a young woman who was actually trafficked by a friend of her family. So you're right. Sometimes the evil is closer than you think. Our retired former White House correspondent. He founded the nonprofit Murder Accountability Project in 2015 to track unsolved homicides nationwide while working as a national correspondent for the Scripps Howard News Service. Hargrove developed an algorithm, this is very interesting, that uses FBI homicide data to identify clusters of murders with an elevated probability of containing serial killers. Very interesting. Authorities in Youngstown, Ohio, and Gary, Indiana, opened new homicide investigations in 2010 because of his findings. Now, the algorithm's identification of 15 unsolved strangulations in Gary was corroborated in 2014 with the arrest of Darren Dion Van. I don't know if you all remember him, but I was over there covering that. I remember it was prolific. It was frightening. He actually ended up confessing to killing women for decades, and then took police to the abandoned homes around Gary where he had dumped their bodies. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to share a few words?
Hi, Evelyn. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Congressman Rush. The Murder Accountability Project exists to make the public more aware of the challenges that police face in clearing homicides and the lack of necessary resources being applied to the problem of unsolved murder. I guess it would not be a surprise to most of your viewers that the clearance rate for homicides of women in the Chicago area are well below that of the national average. Generally speaking, women are more likely to have their murders solved than are men, because usually women are killed by intimates, boyfriends, or people living in the household. And it is generally quite easy to identify who the killer is. But in Chicago, there have been unusual clusters of murders that have gone overwhelmingly unsolved. Our group has issued a warning that there's a very large cluster of unsolved strangulations in the Chicago area that we believe have an elevated probability of containing serial crimes. We've identified 51 women by name who were strangled or asphyxiated and whose cases were not cleared through arrest. There was one case that was solved last year, and that's good news. 50 cases remain unsolved, and we think it's highly likely, we think it's highly unlikely that those 50 women were killed by 50 separate men. We're quite convinced that we're dealing with multiple victim killers in Chicago. Also, it should be noted that the rate at which African American women are murdered in the United States is much, much higher than for any other race. According to data provided by the Centers for Disease Control, the murder rate of African American women is about 5.9 out of every 100,000 every year. That accumulates so that African American women have something like a 1 in 200 chance of being murdered in their lives. That's almost 3 times the rate at which Caucasian women are murdered. It is a serious challenge facing law enforcement. It is a very serious problem in Chicago. Anyone who wants to track what we do or what the murder clearance rates are in your community, we invite you to go to our website. It's free, murderdata.org. We're a nonprofit. We make all of our data available to the public at no charge. If you don't like what you see, we encourage you to have a conversation with your elected leadership, especially your mayor and your city council member. Thank you.
All right, Thomas, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, you know, Thomas is so essential because what he does is he puts numbers to what most folks would say, well, it could be anecdotal, or this is what I just think. Doesn't matter what you just think. Thomas gives the numbers. He gives the hard evidence to back up what many communities in the city are experiencing, not to mention many families. Someone who has special knowledge about this, unique knowledge, would be Karen Phillips, who is the mother of Kira Coles, pregnant postal worker who has been missing since October of 2018. Now, Karen and I haven't spoken in a minute, but we did talk back then. And one thing I admire about her, one of the many things, because who can imagine what that must be like, is her dogged commitment to being vocal about the disappearance, not only of her daughter, but others who have disappeared as well, by continuing to engage the Chicago Police Department, not allowing her daughter's disappearance to go cold, making sure it stays out there, which I'm sure she does at a great emotional cost. Karen, would you like to share some words? Perhaps we're having all right. I think we're having an issue with technology there. So we'll move on until we get Karen, and then we'll have Karen come on in. Someone else who is just is committed I'm back now. In 2002, Julia Flowers retired after 25 years as a computer programmer and customer representative. In 2007, she joined Westside Health as a program coordinator, where she's responsible for 32 parent mentors who work in 4 different elementary schools, mentoring students under the supervision of their teachers. Julia also has worked as program coordinator for the One Summer Chicago Youth Program, where she facilitates the hiring of 300 youth ages 14 to 24, which is huge, every summer, helping to get them off the streets and into safe environments while earning money legally to help them and their families. Julia, this work you do is so important. What would you like to share?
Yes, it is important because it gives our young people a choice that a lot of us didn't have. You know, we practically giving away the jobs. I think that Congressman Rush is correct when he say we have to do more. I think the problem is we have to wake up our community. We're asleep. You know, you don't realize that this is going on under your nose until it happens to you. Well, Stop Taking Our Girls don't want it to happen to you. We want to stop it. But in order to do that, we have to communicate with our communities. We have to have more voices, mean more power, and more voices mean more people are going to hear us when we say, you know, we're not going to allow these sex offenders and murderers to come into our community and snatch our women and girls and you know, and put them into the slave trade of selling their bodies and murdering them when they're no longer of use. We have to go after these people, and we have to find our women and our girls. I know that young men are taken also, but Stop Taking Our Girls are really focused on the women because that has statistics off the chart. And as a concerned mother, when I first heard Rosie Dawson speak at our staff meeting, at our company staff meeting, right away I knew I was going to be part of Stop Taking Our Girls, because I have my own daughter, and you always in fear of that. I just think that the community has so many concerns, all the killings, the money, the financial situations, that we forget about a lot of other things that are very important. And we got to bring that back to the forefront, and we got to wake them up, say, listen, we need your voice, we need your body. When we went out walking the streets with those flyers to find this young lady, her mother was right alongside of us. We were passing out flyers left and right. And sure enough, somebody from that flyer recognized this young lady, and she came back home. She came home, and that told me right there, this is really worthwhile. This is something we have to do and get more people involved. So I will be part of the struggle that's going to continue, I hope, until everybody can hear our cry. So that's pretty much all I have to say is please stay strong and stay in the fight.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Well, listen, let's get right into it. Everyone's kind of had their opening remarks that they like to say, kind of setting the stage for what their contribution is going to be to this conversation, which is so, so important. I wanted to start with Thomas, because Thomas has what I call the hard figures. He's got the evidence, the numbers, the back up what the congressman is saying and what we're all kind of contributing to. In January 2020, I think police arrested 52-year-old Arthur Hilliard. Now, I remember this guy because he was charged with the murder of Diamond Turner, and I believe that I did a story about that, talked to her daughters. The interesting part is that, Thomas, she is one of the women identified by the Murder Accountability Project algorithm as a victim of a potential serial killer. Now, he and the victim were in a domestic relationship. Remember, I believe they were living together, actually. Talk about the talk about that relationship, a lot of these domestic partners, these domestic relationships you've already addressed. And then what I would be interested in too is, how has the pandemic affected the ability to track these types of things because of the isolation that many of these women who are in these circumstances now are experiencing?
Okay, thank you. Yes, we're glad that Mr. Hilliard was arrested. I had a conversation with the chief of detectives, Brendan Dinahan, about this case. When Mr. Hilliard was arrested, police immediately said that they suspected him of other crimes, that he may be a serial killer, but perhaps not our serial killer. This could be one for the books. What we're looking for is a serial killer who kills strangers. Murders involving strangers, where the victim does not personally know her attacker, because these look like stranger crimes, and we're pretty sure that when an arrest is made,
for a serial killer who kills murders involving the victim does not personally know her attacker because he's look like. Check it out.
I'm sorry. When an arrest is made, we're pretty sure it's going to show that the killer was random, that he was not intimate with these women, in that he was living in the household or had a regular relationship. These are women who were found in empty alleyways, abandoned buildings, empty properties, anywhere where the killer could discard the bodies without being observed. That's not the usual domestic violence case. These really do appear to be stranger on stranger murders. We think it's very likely that we're dealing with more than one killer. This is a very large cluster, more than at least 50 unsolved murders of women, and we don't think 50 is the right number. We think there may be more than that. We think it's likely that there are 2 or 3 multiple victim killers. Police are working very hard on these cases. We've had people come to us with hints, possible evidence. We pass it on immediately, of course, to the Chicago Police Department, which has been stellar in following up immediately on any clues that the public is willing to give. We encourage the public to continue to do that. These cases can be solved, and I think over time they will be. I hope they will. Clearly, this is an unusual pattern in Chicago. Chicago has a disproportionate number of the nation's unsolved strangulation and asphyxiation murders. It's very unusual. We hope that the public will come forward. We also want to say generally that the public and the Chicago Police Department need to develop a better working relationship that is critical to solving homicides.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to add this question in there, kind of like pivoting off of what Thomas has said. I'm going to throw this out there to Julia and Rosie. One of the thoughts that I had about, especially during this time, is that when you hear about these missing women or these women who are found dead, murdered, a lot of folks say, "Oh, well, they have these high risk lifestyles," and I always was a little offended by that, just because I thought it was kind of like victim blaming to a degree. But at the same time, I'm wondering, when we're dealing with where we are economically, people are struggling. What are you all doing from a community standpoint to help women in particular situations understand how vulnerable they truly are if they are trying to, if they're on the hustle, if they're trying to make the rent, if they're trying to do what they're trying to do? How are you addressing that issue? Because with the isolation, they become even greater targets, correct?
Yes. But Westside Health Authority has a jobs program for anyone that's interested in looking for jobs. Women that come to us, women and men that come to us, we have so many opportunities to join the community and to change your life. We have housing programs, jobs programs, computer programs. It's nothing that Westside does not offer someone that's in need of help. If we can't help you, we will find someone that can help you. Now, he was talking about the vacant homes. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping. I needed to say this. Chicago has so many vacant homes and plighted homes that these bodies can be in, that the city is doing nothing with. It's a slow drag on vacant properties. And when you go into these properties, you have to beg them to board them up. People need to call and demand that these houses, these garages get boarded up. They just found a body, 2 weeks ago of someone in a garage. I mean, you know what you're living next to. We have to start using our own voice to do these things. The other thing is the DNA delay. The DNA backup is ridiculous. Some of these murders can be solved with the DNA. We believe that it's a young man, and I don't want to say his name right now, but he was convicted of murder in Indiana last year, but he was also had some affiliation with some of the people that was here in Chicago, some of the missing young women from Chicago. So if they would get their DNA backlog together, that could help solve a lot of them also. And I just need to say that the sheriff department has reached out to Stop Taking Our Girls campaign and want to work with us with some of these cold cases also. So I need to not forget to say that through my passion. Ms. Flowers.
Julia, you gotta unmute yourself. Are you unmuted?
I'm sorry.
There you go. That's all right. Not a problem. Not a problem. Go right ahead.
Right.
No, it's okay.
We've had meetings in our community. Rosie have called meetings in our community where we've talked to parents and young people about the dangers of the street and how to protect themselves once they're out there, how to carry themselves, what you can do. We talk to them about self-defense, but the best defense is not to put yourself in a situation. But if you find yourself in one, and that could easily happen with a predator, you could just be on your way to work. You don't have to be out there doing something or in a club. If he's looking for someone to snatch or rape or hurt, then you're going to become a victim. But you have to keep your eyes open. Get out of that telephone when you're walking down the street. A lot of young people, you see their faces buried in their phone. They have no idea what's going on around them. So we try to warn them of simple things like that they can do, and let them know that we are there in the community, that we are concerned. And our hope is if it happens to someone, they'll get in touch with us like the other young lady's parent did. But we do try to reach out and touch families with the information.
Yeah, well, like you say, knowledge is truly power. Giving people information, making sure they're aware, because a lot of times, if you're not aware, obviously you fall greater victim. I have a question for Congressman Rush. I wanted to throw out there about this issue of missing women, and especially with women of color often, being 4 times more likely to be reported missing than white women. Talk about how the classifications of these women affect things, meaning being classified as a runaway, as opposed to the first step being obviously this person has been, this woman, this girl, working from a point of kidnapping, abduction, that sort of thing, as opposed to running away. Talk about a little bit about that and your concerns with that.
I think that is, you really hit on a very key issue in terms of the timeliness that the police gets involved. Lazy policing and devaluing victims, that's a part of the thought processes that male dominated establishment that they have, and it's easy to classify a missing young girl or especially young girl as a runaway. It takes no thought. It's almost automatic, and it's at that critical point in those very first few hours that are so meaningful to solving, to preventing a tragedy, and to solving cases when a tragedy occurs. So I think that what we need to do, and we're looking at this at the federal level, but our hands are somewhat tied at the federal level, unless it's some way we can make this bring this under the federal crime code. Our hands are somewhat tied, but we have to have a standard that the police have to conduct themselves by in regards to runaway, classifying victims as runaway children. There needs to be a higher standard. We can't have it a different standard for every state and every municipality in the state. Different different criteria for what is a runaway. You know, someone should be held accountable for uh, for categorizing missing young girls as runaways within the first few hours, say the first 12 hours or 24 hours of their report that they are missing.
Right, right, absolutely. I have two other questions. I'm going to throw this out there to the panel. Two questions. Um, how much does the fractured relationship that we see evidenced every day with the George Floyd trial going on now, that situation going on, and some right here in the city, the tension between communities and police hinder locating young women or women and girls when they go missing? That's question number one. Question number two, and you all can decide which one you want to answer, is, and my colleagues would be interested, is to like, oh my God, I can't believe she's saying this. But how crucial is it from a media perspective to get that word out? And is there, do you all think there's a bias there, meaning white girl from the suburbs versus somebody from Inglewood getting the coverage and getting it out there and not being deemed a runaway, but someone who's been abducted? I'll throw that out there to the body. Those are my two questions.
You know, if a white woman on the Gold Coast lose her dog, they gonna find it. There'll be policemen looking for this dog to return it to her. They'll have cameras there. If a black girl in Austin or any community goes missing, then she's classified as a runaway, when by the time they start looking, she could be in Michigan someplace, you know, or if they haven't taken her life. I don't know what to say about that. There's justice for blacks, no justice for black, and justice for everybody else. You know, the black and brown community, it looks like and it feels like we always have to step out and pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and try to get it done ourselves, you know, and there's no problem when it happens with someone else of a different color. So I just feel like we're always being victimized. You know, not saying all police officers are bad, because we know there are good ones out there, but what's going on now in the news is absolutely crazy. And we want them to help us when we lose our child. We run to the police station and tell them that our daughter's missing. And they say, well, give me 24 hours or 48 hours because she probably just ran away from home. Are you serious? You know.
Rosie, we can't hear you. Check your audio. Okay, I'm seeing you moving, but I'm not hearing you. Okay, well, maybe what we'll do, let Rosie, let us let you try to correct that. Thomas, did you want to add something while Rosie's trying to correct that?
Yeah, I'd like to say a little something about both of your questions. To the first question, how important is the relationship between the community and the police? Critical, absolutely critical. There are places in America that have a very high clearance rate, major cities that clear by making an arrest 90% of the time, 90%. It's like we're still back in the 1950s. And that really comes down to a very good working relationship between the community, because that's where all the witnesses are, and the police, whose job it is to try to find those witnesses and to try to turn a case over to prosecutors that can go to a court of law. Unfortunately, there are growing numbers of communities where it's a very fractured relationship between police and the community. And that's a political failure. That is a failure of relationships. It is incumbent upon the mayor and the city council and everyone else in a leadership position in a community to try to heal that relationship, to get people talking. And quite frankly, everyone has a vested interest in clearing homicides. We found that in communities where most murders go solved, guess what? There are fewer murders. If you catch the killers, the rate of killing goes down. I mean, that shouldn't be a shocker, but that's the way it is in places that have an effective relationship. To your other question, yeah, so we put out a report a year ago that, as you know, there's been a steady decline in the rate at which homicides are cleared through arrest. We used to clear 90% of them, and now we're clearing about 60%. We're probably going to hit an all-time low when the 2020 data are reported later this year. I have to say that the entirety of that decline has been borne by African American victims, that the rate at which we clear Caucasian and Asian and Native American murders has held pretty constant over the last 50 years. The big decline has been in the African American community, where fewer and fewer murders get cleared. And that, again, goes back to the relationship between police and the community. We encourage everyone in Chicago to get involved. You're literally saving your own lives by working with police, by picking up the phone and making the call, not allowing a murder to go unsolved, because a killer walking in the street is not good news for anybody.
Okay. Is Rosie back, I wonder? I don't know if Rosie, can we hear you now? I still don't hear her. Okay, well, maybe what we'll do is, maybe if you go back out and come back in, it'll adjust. We'll adjust. I have for you all, we talked about the basics of this. And the question would be to Julia and also to Thomas, and then we get Rosie back. How do we fix it? You know, I mean, I guess that's that over broad reach. We talked about the issues of the causation. We've, Thomas has been very adept at giving us the evidence. I mean, to back up what most folks are living. How do we fix it? What do we do? You guys are doing some of the stuff on you're on the street. Oh,
can you hear me,
Rosie? Okay.
Right. Oh, thank God.
So, but Rosie, say what you need to say, and then we'll go to the question about how do we fix all this? How do we get started with trying to address the real issue? What did you want to add?
Mr. Hargrove, I agree with you and I disagree with you. The police have DNA evidence a lot of times in these murder cases. So they can find who they want to find when they want to find them. If we shoot a policeman out here, oh, trust me, they're gonna find who shot that policeman out here. It's not a question. They will find who did it. They found the man that punched Rahm Emanuel's son in the face. Okay? They find who they want to find. They find the vested interest of politics. We are not the politics. We should be. Our voting class is higher than anyone else's at this time. To me, it goes back all the way back, and I hate to people drudge up the old thing, slavery, but it goes back to slavery where we just don't count. Malcolm X has said it. Black women are the most disrespected human beings on this earth, and they could care less about finding anything about us other than the.
Okay, Rosie, let me stop you there.
Yes.
Okay, with that point, let me stop you there. That being said, okay, whose fault is that? I mean, we have to, I should say fault, we have to have ownership, right? So
yes.
Whereas if the example you give, they can find the man that punched whoever, they can find this, if a cop gets shot, then they're all over that. Whose fault is that? We're electing these aldermen who are in many cases letting our dollars run out of our particular wards, are forcing these businesses that are coming into Black neighborhoods to hire Black or to invest in after school programs in those communities. We're allowing this. So what do we do to get our level of accountability to the point where we do matter? I always tell my daughters, people treat you the way you allow them to. So you have to set the bar first. Your thoughts?
I agree with you, and I agree with him. My point is this: we do elect these people, we do all the time, but we have to speak up. One person is not going to stop anything. We have to come together and as a community.
As a community.
And plant the flowers so the children can see these beautiful flowers growing. But again, it's hard to do that when you don't have a voice. They don't give us a voice. The question that you were asked about the footage, camera, what do? They don't come looking for us when some girl is missing. I called Channel 2, 5, and 7, and 9 when Ryan was missing. The only station that showed up, was Channel 9. Tanya Grisby. Tanya showed up. To me, if it's not about the next big thing with Blacks, but again, if we do something wrong, the camera's always shining when we do something wrong. Mm-hmm. All I'm saying is let it shine at all times.
Yeah, and what I'm adding to you, and I'm hearing exactly what you're saying, and I'm saying to you that, you know what, and I don't think Channel 7 would have a problem with me saying this. If you see something that isn't right, then you need to write an email and let them know. And you need to say just that. If you all, I'm not trying to make this about me, but I'm saying that a lot of the stories that I do out in the community are because I want to seek balance. Channel 7 wants to seek balance, because my thing is, if we can go to somewhere after someone's been shot, we can go to the same place when someone's planting a community garden.
I agree with you.
Having community yoga for the kids to teach them how to deal with the stress, or has a chess club to develop positive relationships between kids and law enforcement in the neighborhood. They do that out there in the 7th district out there. Sergeant Dixon is one of the ones that does that. So you hear what I'm saying? So I'm trying to like just move us off this part to the next part.
Right, I agree with you. And I was also going to say, now I'm just going to speak up for the Sheriff Tom Dart. He has been awesome in the Austin community.
Yes.
They walk the streets in Austin. They're building relationships. I think the walls are coming down to a certain degree, with that particular community and what they're doing over there. Is that everywhere? I can't say yes. I can't say no. Right. But I know they're in Austin doing that. And I know they care because they show that they care. They set up stuff for kids to come and walk up to them. We used to be able to walk up to policemen and feel safe. We got to get that safety back with police.
Right.
They used to come to classrooms and meet the kids.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be afraid to walk up to the policeman. Now all they know is police gonna shoot you.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
Know what I mean?
And that's something that they have to make an effort to do. It can't be one-sided. I hear exactly what you're saying. It's that we have to work together. So communities have to do their part, but the other ones have to do their part too.
And you're absolutely right. And you are so right when you say that it's time for the elected officials to do their part. And I humbly appreciate Congressman Rush for doing this, because a lot of them don't have the courage to do what he's doing right now and to let us speak freely, because we're going to tarnish something. and it's no tarnish to say, stop taking up, stop harming us. You know, our kids can't run up and down the streets. You know, I saw a documentary on TV, and I'm not changing the subject. I'm gonna get right back to the story.
It's all right.
Well, my address is 12238 South Stewart, and it's somewhere else over east. So they call it the address exchange, and you can just see the difference in the neighborhoods from the same exact address, north and west. You know what I mean? Versus this, we should all look the same. Our tax dollars go the same way. And if you got more surplus that way, then some of it should be given this way. You should level the playing fields in these schools, in these playgrounds. These kids should have parks. They shouldn't be flipping on mattresses. There shouldn't be glass in the streets. You know, the city of Chicago looks so bad. And I don't know whose fault it is, because I don't know how you do it. But driving down the expressway, you don't see anything beautiful. You don't see anything beautiful going down the Eisenhower or the Dan Ryan. It's a horrible look. And people need to learn. Stop putting trash out. Say it. People need to teach us how to be in certain communities. It's the things that we do. Certain people don't know. If you've never lived in a house, you don't know how to treat a house.
Yes. If they bring them from another community and just drop them here, if they've never been in this community, we got to start coming together as a whole and saying, this is how we are over here. But it's going to take the heads to lead. When we put people in charge, they have to lead. And I know this being a Black woman. We, as Black people, we don't stand by and just do this. We always waiting for a leader. That's just the truth. If somebody stepped up today, that Barack Obama, for example, we just thought the world was the best thing when Barack Obama was president. You know what I mean? Barack Obama. We need a leader. We need people that's going to take charge of us, that come and ask us for the vote. And we depend on them. We do. We honestly depend on them to say something. And it could be something that Congressman Rush could say to 100 Black men out here that would stop crime tomorrow in their area. You know what I mean? You can't just, but there also has to be accountability. I mean, you know, when somebody comes, when someone comes in and they want your vote, and they make promises, then they need to be held accountable. You know, I'm the head of my household. I run my household. I hold my children accountable to certain things. You know, it's got to be that way. It has to be that duality to it. Julia, Thomas, anything you want to add?
No, I just want to say it goes back to when I was young, all of us has heard this saying, us Black folks got to get together. You know what you got to do? You got to step out and be responsible and take responsibility. You see something, you say something. We do have to come together as a community. But where does it start? It starts with you. It starts with me. Yes. You know, not just if Congressman Rush is out there, we got to help. We got to stand behind him with our voices.
Absolutely.
And let him know that
but I guess my question then becomes, what can communities do to help keep themselves safe? You see, because, you know, if I live, I don't know, let's say I live in Lincoln Park, and this isn't a problem in Lincoln Park, or let's say I live in Evergreen Park, and this isn't a problem in Evergreen Park, but this is a problem, let's say in, I don't know, Austin. What is it that folks in Austin need to be doing? Because I guess what I'm getting at is that I was always taught, you know, people will value what if I value it. So if I value something, then folks will make sure I value it, they value it too. So what needs to happen where people of color will value other people of color to the point where they will not allow these types of things to occur in their neighborhoods? Thomas, anybody?
Yeah, I can tell you what is happening in many communities where the clearance rate is very good. When there has been a murder in many places in the South, they have what is called a community response, so that members of the police department and elected leaders, neighborhood association presidents, members of the city council, they pair up and they go 2 by 2, just like the disciples, and knock on doors and have a little conversation with everybody within a mile of the murder scene. Did you see anything? Do you know the victim? Do you know who his friends are? Do you know what happened? And by the way, it doesn't have to be this way. We can take charge of this. And if we do, we're not going to have other murders. A community response literally is the answer. That when we stand up and pair up with authority and work to fix this, it'll get fixed. The problem with runaway murder and the problem with runaway missing people is a political failure. And we hope that leaders will get the message. We hope that everyday people get the message. It doesn't have to be this way. And in places where people stand up and partner up, change can happen. And it comes down to everybody, and I mean everybody, saying, I'm just tired of this. Let's do something. I don't want to see my community go to hell. Let's work and let's get it done and hold everybody accountable. The police, the mayor, everybody accountable, because we all are responsible for the kind of community we allow our community to be.
I agree with him.
Congressman, let me ask Congressman Rush this. I'm curious as to what the response has been to you championing this issue of missing women and girls of color. What has been the response from some of your, obviously your colleagues in Congress, but also, I mean, you have been around long enough that you know folks that are at a state level, a county level, local level. You know all these people. So what's been the response to that? And has it been disappointing to you, or are you bolstered or feel positive that they will join you in your effort?
Well, I think it's been a response that they're interested, but they're not intensely interested.
Why do you think
It's
that
not
is, sir?
Because it's not something that is going to that they feel is going to be decisive in their ability to get reelected.
See,
All right, and frankly, they deal with so many issues, from the environment to employment to law enforcement to housing to the economy. Just so many issues day by day that it really doesn't become the kind of priority that it should be. And a lot of times it's because it's this there's a disassociation between missing young Black girls and unemployment, or missing Black girls and housing, or missing Black girls. And see, all of this is, to me, is all interconnected,
Yes.
interrelated.
I see that.
All right.
Yes.
And so most of my colleagues, they are, concerned about their focus on their committees that they serve under, the legislation that they're responsible. But my concern is that I value people.
Yes.
So I don't let myself become compartmentalized in my approach, because I value whatever the circumstances, whatever the conditions, whatever the problem is, then I'm going to see what I can do to solve that problem. So I'm going to step outside of my box.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to let anybody put me in a box, because I'm concerned with humanity. and I'm concerned with the human condition, and I'm concerned with the with black people and black people's condition, and also white people and other folks and their condition. And I'm concerned about our young girls because our young girls are undervalued in all kinds of ways from the beginning. All right, of their lives, they're undervalued. All right, and we've got to, we've got to detrain and retrain and be taught the importance of valuing ourselves and valuing as men, but also valuing our women, because we cannot allow our women to become automatic victims, because that is an indication of the weakness in our families, in our communities, in our institutions. And so all of us, this has got to be a collaborative conversation, a collaborative discussion, and a collaborative commitment by our community, all right, to, first of all, take responsibility. I got to teach value. I got to teach all the women in my world to value yourself. Don't let anyone devalue you. Know your value. Know your worth. Know that you are the mother of all humanity. Know your value.
Yes.
And don't let anyone devalue you. I mean, but again, I just want to emphasize, for me as a member of Congress, it goes beyond just the legislative answer. To me, it's really a consciousness. It's not an issue of the head always. It's also
an issue of the heart.
Yeah, it's a level of consciousness, and it's an internal. It's what's inside comes out. It's an internal issue. You have to have that value. I would be interested, I love the way you put that, Congressman. How you talked about where other folks are making these equivalencies that really don't exist, and whereas they may see this as an either or, you see it, and don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to make sure I'm clear. You see it more as an indication of some of the other issues. So when there are no jobs, we see this. When there isn't a stable economic engine in an area, we see this. This is indicative of some of those other issues that exist. So and I would be interested when we're talking about that, Thomas, based on what. I mean, you're like my numbers guy. you're my guy. So tell me, and not necessarily in numbers, but based on the evidence, the data that you gather, how is this trending? Especially now that we're in this phase, has been for about a year now, of even greater isolation. Is there any hope that we can either put a dent in this, so we can stop this, or are you expecting these numbers to skyrocket?
Oh boy, there's always hope. But I have no good immediate news. The pandemic has been terrible. The disruption in the relationship between police and community has gone downhill for reasons that you need only look at your daily newspaper to understand. We do expect to hit an all-time low in clearance rates when 2020 data come in, and the rate of murder has gone up a lot. We don't know how large that murder jump has been until we get further data, but it's looking very much like a 25 or 30% jump. If that pans out, this is the largest single year increase in our history. That's not good. It doesn't have to be this way, and so that's why I would never say there's no hope, because there is.
Yeah.
We are the source of our problems, and we are the source of our solutions. We have to turn things around, and we can turn things around. There are places in America that did not have a big bump in homicide last year. We need to learn from those places. We need to take accountability and take responsibility. And that means all of us, not just to point fingers someplace else. It's here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
And, to take that responsibility and to require that murder is a bad business, that we will not accept unsolved murder, that we will not accept missing Americans not being reported, that we instead hold everybody up to a better standard and to pay attention to what that performance is. If we do that, I think we can turn things around. I think we will. It can't get much worse than I think it's about to be. So the good news is maybe it's downhill or uphill from here on in.
From here on in. You
Yeah.
guys have given so much great information. I want to get the audience in on this, and we were trying to get some questions from the audience. I thought some of them were going to be in the chat here. Let me check real quick. I don't see anything there as of yet, but I know some of these questions. So here's one of them that's just popped up. What can law enforcement do to rebuild community trust so that families can feel comfortable about asking for help? Rosie, you want to take that, or Julia, you want to take that?
They can come back to the table and to the schools. They can stop sitting in their cars. They come into our neighborhoods and they sit in the cars instead of getting out the cars and talking to us. You're not there to study us. We're not some kind of case study. Come talk to us. Mm-hmm. You never know what you'll find out. Just do a general conversation. So just come back to the community with an open heart, an open hand. Mm-hmm. And Thomas, I just want to say, you can work with us. You can come help us at any time. We appreciate you. We do.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. We need the help.
I'm a Chicago boy. I grew up in Chicago.
That's right. We need the help in Austin. We really do. But I think that's what it is. They have to stop feeling like it's us against them, and we have to stop feeling that way too. Yes. Now, I'm not pointing the finger. I'm just simply saying we got to start coming back to the table.
Right.
That's all.
Right.
As a community.
Right. And I love the way you put that. It's like, we all have to make that effort. It's not someone pointing this way. Right. I was taught, when you point a finger at someone, they a few others coming right back at you. Mm-hmm. So be careful how you're pointing.
Right.
Be careful how you're pointing. Let's see if we have any other additional questions while we're waiting. This question is for Jamie sent in this question. This is for the Congressman and also Thomas. Her question is, where is the FBI task force in terms of finding the killers? And I'm assuming she means killers, meaning those who are deemed responsible for these strangulation, suffocation murders that Thomas has kind of outlined for us. I don't know, Congressman, if you want to address that, or Thomas, or both of you.
I from our last meeting that we had on the summit, and that question was pre-coronavirus. I know that there are ongoing meetings and discussion, collaboration, and joint investigation. But as far as I know, they have not been able to come up with any conclusive evidence to arrest anybody for these murders as of yet. And that's the information that I have so far.
Thomas, any?
Yeah. These murders have been a tough nut to crack. One of the oddities of this pattern is how little DNA there is. We're talking about strangulation murders. Many of these women, not all, but many of these women were sex workers. And to have so little DNA in such a large group of hands-on murders is very unusual. We're not quite sure what that means. I can speak well of the attempts by the Chicago Police Department in partnership with the FBI to try to work any leads possible. There have been some cases in which people have contacted me, and they should not use me as a middleman. Call the detectives yourselves. But I'm happy to pass on anything people give me. But we've had situations in which both Chicago police and the FBI have followed up on leads immediately. It has been a very aggressive attempt by the FBI and by the Chicago Police Department. They're trying. These are the coldest of cold cases. The odds of solving a murder that has gone cold after a year are once in a blue moon, but they're trying. They are trying.
I just want to add, Evelyn, we as a community, we got to own our issues. More. I think Rosa was spoke to this. If we own the issues, then and we do commit ourselves to solving the problem, then we can expect others, police, FBI, whoever, to work with us to solve the problem. But this event that we're this discussion that we're having now is meant to help create the conversation so that we can have more
Conversations.
commitment from more people to own the issue. We got to own our own issues. It got to be a priority with us, and not just for this event, but tomorrow morning, it's got to be on our mind. And I understand that there are 100 issues that we wake up with every morning that maybe those in other communities don't wake up with. They ain't got to rush with the same issue. But this issue of missing young Black girls and women is an issue that ought to be a priority, and we got to own it every day until we stop it.
Yes.
Thomas brought up an interesting, I guess, just not just description, but some more information about these women. Sex work
Before that.
Did she freeze?
She froze.
Yeah, she froze.
She been threatening to freeze for a while now.
Well, let me just say, I know it's women that's out here and they live in a particular lifestyle, but there are also women that's not out here that don't live a lifestyle, that they do snatch. The postal worker, she was on her way to work. You know what I'm saying? This stuff happens, and to what degree, to me, it really doesn't matter. If they're prostituting, and I'm just going to say the word, if they're prostituting, or if they're going to an office, or if they're going to get ice cream, their body belongs to them, and no one has the right to take their life. So that's the best way I can say that. Now, we shouldn't care any less about this person or that person. I just took over for a minute, Evelyn.
That's all right. No problem. Listen, do your thing, girl. Do your thing.
She takes charge anyway, don't you?
But you're right. I heard the last point you said. You shouldn't care any less. Continue the thought. Continue the thought.
It's just the truth. You just shouldn't care any less. It's a life. It's a human being, and I don't want anything to happen to a white woman, a Black woman, a Chinese woman, a Mexican woman, anyone. We all have the right to go outside and smell the roses. And if someone should put their hand on me, then my neighbor should step up and say something. It's about what's going on in our communities. We need beauty in our communities. Now, that's the only thing that I'm going to say that I hold elected officials accountable for in my areas. Because if I can go to Lincoln Park and see flowers and Evergreen Park and see flowers, I should be able to go to Inglewood and see the same tree-lined streets. And the kids should know that there's beauty in their community. And some of the ugliness will just go away on its own.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying too is, where I live, if my kids see garbage, I tell them pick it up.
Absolutely.
Don't just walk over it. Don't just step over it. there has to be.
I'm
I
in
think
West Portland.
It's people of color. We have to value ourselves and we have to value our space, right?
You're right. But we also need those initiatives. We also need those initiatives from the people in charge to start those things. We used to have a thing where,
So wait, hold on, Rosie. So what am I hearing? What you're saying is, so we have to have people who are in charge to value us before we value ourselves.
No. I'm talking about your parents.
No.
Your
Okay.
parents.
Okay.
We need to teach. I mean, we like Miss Flowers teach a class with the school system. She's mentoring parents. Some of these, especially these younger parents, they're not coming here ready to be a full parent. They not this next generation. They not getting this like we got it. We got it from Mama, Miss Thelma, Miss Jones, Miss Thomas. You know what I mean? They not getting what we got, and it's just a simple truth. So if you don't know it, you don't do it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, we just got to get back to where we are homing in on what a community is. We're not teaching community.
Right. There you go. Right, Rona. Yeah. Right. You're right. Yeah.
That's hard to argue with. You can't. And the thing is it talk about a little bit. Maybe the congressman can do this, or anyone else. Talk about the role of the faith community to come in and start teaching some of those principles. And then should neighborhoods start their own patrols? I mean, when are neighbors going to come together to protect one another? Is that a slippery slope that we don't want to go down? I mean, what about that?
Well, Evelyn, I was trying to avoid that. I was heading that direction. I pastor a church.
Yes.
I'm a community Church of God in Christ, and I always am going to say that the church should be the training ground for these values that we've been talking about. That's where we learned it. That's where the history of our race, the history of Black people in America cannot be separated from the history of the church. The church was the only institution that we had that we ever had, and it's the longest running institution that we have in terms of the Black community. Our communities used to be centered around the church, and because that's where the opportunities and the values emanated from, and and the mission and the goal of the church has to reassert itself in the lives and in the affairs of the community. It has to reassert itself. It has to teach young boys and young girls values. It has to give them opportunity to express their own dignity and sense of who they are. I mean, if the church don't teach you that you were created in the image of God, then who else is going to teach it to you? And so, the faith community, certainly sit at the crucible in terms of trying to reestablish our sense of community, what community should be, and how we must hold each other accountable for community.
Right.
I mean, it's inherent. It's inherent in the faith. These messages that everyone spoke to today, these are inherent. This is the gospel, the Old Testament, and these are inherent in the values of the church. And what the church has been silent, too silent. How many, let me just make this one point. How many ministries, how many sermons, how many missionary efforts, how many can we identify, those of us on this phone, on this call? How many can we identify in our community?
And you know what? You bring up an interesting point too, that, oftentimes I find that when people are in survival mode,
Right.
they're not interested in hearing some of these very kind of high-minded concepts because they're hungry. So I think Julia and Rosie and Thomas as well, because you all are, right there as well as the congressman, can talk a little bit about that too, about what efforts are you all making to, like you say, Rosie, you talked about the jobs. You talk about make sure folks got jobs, housing, food, so you can get people into a place where they can hear what's being said and develop that inner value, right?
Mm-hmm.
That helps.
That helps a lot, but that's not all of it. It's like I said, if you walk outside and it's raining and you don't have an umbrella, you're gonna get rained on.
Yep.
Right?
You're gonna get wet.
If somebody give you an umbrella, then you got some coverage.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Sometimes we need some of that coverage.
Right.
And I agree with him when he's saying about the churches. But it's also even with the schools, and I don't want to put anything else on the teacher's plate because that's a whole nother conversation.
My mother's a teacher, I certainly know.
Right. But again, it's just certain things that we raising these kids, and you got to start now with the little ones, because I'm not saying the other ones are lost at all. But if we start it up, we can get it to grow into where we eliminate the problem from the bottom and the top. Mm-hmm. You got to start it with boys, don't with girls. All of this stuff that parents let their kids watch on TV. It's a bunch of violence everywhere. Things that they let freedom of speech. You're taking away some of the innocence of children.
Right.
By letting them see this violence. So these kids that seeing all this abuse in homes, abuse on TV, abuse outside. I mean, it's just at some point, we have to start protecting these children for our own good, not just their own good. Because they're the ones that's going to be growing up, knocking us upside the head, snatching us because of the violence that they see. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm saying.
How important, how much do you think when we talk about, missing women and girls, and I know I keep going back to this pandemic, but I really feel this sense of isolation, and I really feel like that has been an additional negative to what you all are trying to combat. Talk about how that's made what you're trying to do even harder.
It's hard because we don't get people coming to us saying particular things because they don't know if they're missing, or they don't know if they're just in a house somewhere, somebody's house, their cousins. So we don't get a lot of those calls right now. Honestly, we don't. And I was thinking, Thomas, I'm hoping you're wrong, Thomas. I'm really hoping you're wrong. I was thinking that, the pandemic sort of slowed some stuff down because people are being isolated and they are, in houses. You know what I mean? That's what I'm hoping, because we're not getting half as many inquiries and calls as we were getting at first about this issue. Now, is it out here? I'm absolutely sure that it is. And the only thing that I can say is anybody that needs any help, go to the police, go online, walk up to the police and say, look, I need help. I'm living this way. They come with information. They're there to protect and serve. They should be able to give you a place where you can go get some counseling, go direct you to the alderman office, direct you to a non-for-profit that's in your area, that's in their beat area. Mm-hmm. These are things that we need from the community, and we all should be at the ready when somebody knock on our door for help. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I hear you. We're getting close to our time that we have to kind of wrap things up. So what I wanted to do is give everyone an opportunity to kind of make a closing statement before we conclude this conversation for this evening. Can we start with you, Thomas? Can you share some of your closing thoughts as we move toward concluding our conversation?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I got to agree with Rosie. I hope I'm wrong too. I'm not.
Yeah.
So Chicago had been making progress in recent years. Our worst year in a long time was 2016, when Chicago reported 765 murders. But there were 775 murders last year, and we're still counting whether everything was counted correctly. That was the biggest single year jump in homicide in Chicago ever. And I'm afraid that happened all over the country. It doesn't have to be this way, but we're in the middle of hard times. The pandemic and unrest and cases of police misperformance, the inappropriate use of force, all of those factors have caused a breakdown in the normal procedures of investigating homicide and clearing homicides. Unfortunately, Chicago again has become a place where most murders go unsolved. And nothing good happens when that happens. And it's happening all over the country. In recent years, there are more than 70 major cities where most murders went unsolved. It is a figure that has been growing over time. It doesn't have to be this way, but we're going through hard times right now.
Yes. Okay. Julia, any words that you would like to share as we conclude our conversation for the evening?
Yes, I think we all have to stay motivated and stay involved in our community. Work with the police any way that you can. Involve them in your community efforts, and you'll find that they do cooperate with you. They have with us many times. And if you see something, say something. That's where it's going to start. It's not always men released from prison that are committing a crime. Sometimes it's your next door neighbor, you know, and just stay involved. That's all I say. Open your eyes and see what's going on around you, and that'll help.
Okay. Rosie?
First, I just want to say we need to create our own coverage, you know, force the news to get involved, go to the newspaper. You see something, as Miss Julia said, say something. You know, we got to be aware, not just for ourselves, but for our families. We have to advocate for ourselves and others, okay? And also, my take on this is bring back officer friendly.
Yeah.
Bring them back. I just say, bring them back. Find some funds in the police funds for that. You know, even with the TIF money from some of these communities, bring back the community beauty. So somebody knows some beauty around here. It's money that can be used to help these particular situations. And we need to start reaching into the pot of that while we just letting it go back to wherever. It can help a little bit. Every little bit helps when you're trying to save somebody's life.
Right.
And thank
Congressman,
you, Congressman.
I will. Not a problem, Congressman. I'll allow you the last word.
Well, I think that the answer to the problem is represented really by the panelists who are, and also our hosts who are here. Black women are going to solve this problem because there's no single force in nature that is as powerful as the power of Black women when their minds collectively is made up that they're going to solve this problem. So as the son of a strong Black woman, I know the power of Black women. And I think that Black women, once they own this problem, then they are going to lead our communities and this nation into solving the problem. I've seen it happen throughout history. You know, there was a problem in Liberia about 20 years ago where there was a civil war, genocide, fighting one another, or fratricide. But until Black women got organized, committed to solving that problem using strategies and tactics that only Black women know how to use and can use, when they start using their own sense of their own womanhood, their sense of having a unique perspective on the problem of violence in Liberia, which far exceeded the violence that we observe here in Chicago and other places. When they made up their mind, then the whole nation had to respond, and they solved that problem. And that led to a black woman becoming president of Liberia, all because of their attitude around solving the problem of missing girls, boys, and the Civil War in Liberia. So we can learn from history, but I am absolutely convinced.
Okay.
That with our support, but when black women lead and they understand their power, then things do happen. And so I'm convinced of that.
Well, this has just been a thank you, Congressman. This has been a marvelous conversation. Julia, Thomas, Rosie, thank you so much for allowing me to just be a part of this with you. I've learned a lot this evening. I'm sure the audience has learned a lot as well. I think we've all learned that, this isn't an other problem. This is an us problem, and that we all have to work together to help each other, because what happens to one of us happens to all of us. And so it is a marvelous conversation, I think, that we had tonight about a very difficult topic, but one that needs to be had. And hopefully, we can have more conversations, and our future conversations will be talking about really how things have gotten better and not worse. That's what we're hoping. So thank you again to the panelists, and thank you to Congressman Rush for bringing us together for this important evening. I bid everybody a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.